a big idea that's developed and implemented is a lot more powerful and a lot more significant than an idea that just remains in your head. Everybody have big ideas? You can raise your hand, it's not going to hurt. You have big ideas? Do you have big ideas when you leave school?
Yes, I do.
Do you have big ideas? Okay, I have big ideas. I remember when I was 20 years old, I went to go work for IBM, and I had really great ideas. Now, most of you are probably too young to remember, but I worked in a big computer room about the size of this entire classroom. And I used to be the person to put the paper into the printer and make sure those big computer reports were printed. And I had some great ideas on how to save money and how to increase revenue and how to keep that flowing. Sadly, those ideas never came to fruition because I was always concerned about what my boss thought. I was always concerned about what my coworkers thought. And I'm here to tell you today, if you have a big idea, hold on to that idea and put so much inertia and so much energy behind it that it makes changes in the organization. Now, I'm sure some of you that have completed your undergrad and you've finished your graduate work, as you move into the workforce, I want you to imagine for a minute that big idea that you have. Let's imagine we have a powerful idea that we were able to uncover capital in an organization and put it to work, that we're able to increase revenue of that organization and decrease cost. I want you to take that idea and give it to your boss. Don't be afraid if he says, "You're too young, you're too inexperienced, you don't understand." Take that idea to your boss because he's going to listen and he's going to understand after we talk about this idea. And remember, big ideas are what starts change, especially in the solar industry. So let's talk about activating some unused capital in an organization. But let's look at it from a building perspective. So like this building here, what are some areas of unused capital that we can make money on? An empty classroom. We could rent the classroom out. Storage. There's plenty of storage available in a building that we don't use. But you know what the number one unused portion of a building is that's not being capitalized? It's a roof. Can somebody tell me what this roof is doing right now?
So increasing your heating.
Increasing your heating. Is it aging?
Yeah.
Is it making any money for the business? Now imagine, go back to that big idea we talked about. You're the person that goes to the boss and says, "I have an idea of taking this roof and generating revenue from this rooftop." But also can actually reduce costs with that. Your boss will say, "That's a great idea. I think I'm going to take it to the owner." So let's explore that a little bit. I had the opportunity to poll 100 CEOs in the Northeast, and I had a very frank conversation with them, and I said, "I want you to tell me what are the top expenses that control your business on a yearly basis?" And he was able to give me some very direct answers. The first one is payroll. We all want to get paid when we go into the marketplace, right? We all want to get that big salary. The other is marketing. Now, with the advent of social media, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, you can even advertise on Snapchat. You still have to pay for marketing. You have to let people know who you are and where you are. The other is technology. Who wants to work on an iPhone 3? Not many of you. Who wants to work on an iPhone 6 Plus? You have to invest in technology. Investing in technology is important to keep up with your competition. And let's not forget hackers. So investing in technology is really important. Then there's rent, which nobody really has control over. You have to pay the rent. The other two areas they talked about were energy, and they also talked about taxes. Now, businesses that make money have to pay taxes. And it doesn't matter how much money you make, you have to pay your utility bill. You have to keep the lights on. You have to power your building. So let's take a look at ways that we can affect two areas that we can control and reduce the cost of energy and have control over those expenses and not have it have a negative impact. So the first thing we said was payroll. We asked the president of the company, "If I cut payroll, is that a negative impact?" He goes, "Yeah, I would lose some really fantastic employees, or I might not be able to hire a really great employee." What if I cut back on marketing? Marketing is going to be a problem because we're not going to be able to tell the planet who we are. And what about technology? Well, as I explained a moment ago, we're going to affect our ability to keep up with competitors, and we're also going to be able to expose ourselves to hackers. The only two areas that we talked about were energy and taxes that if we reduce those costs would not have a negative impact. Now remember, your big idea is to change your roof into a revenue-producing asset and reduce costs. So let's talk about ROI. There are two checks every business has to write every single year. One every month is the utility bill, and the other is for the taxes. Okay? Everybody understand what ROI means? Return on investment? So the money that you pay, how long does it take for me to recoup that investment, and how much of a return do I get on it? Can somebody tell me what the return is on the check written to the utility? Is there any way to calculate that? Anybody tell me what it is? It's a big fat zero. What about the check that they write to the government? What's the ROI on that check? It's zero. So what if there was a way to eliminate this check and maybe defer or eliminate this check? And let's talk about that. So if we were able to take the roof, the big idea that you have, which is to convert that roof into an asset, generate money, and then have the government help subsidize through tax incentives and state incentivized rebates, and permanently and significantly reduce energy, what would the answer be? The answer would be solar energy. Now think about this for a moment. Solar's been around for about 5 billion years. The sun's been around about 5 billion years. Julian, do you want to correct me if I'm saying it right, about 5 billion years? Okay, but it's only been in the last 20 years that we've been able to perfect the technology of capturing sunlight and being able to convert it into something that really makes sense for business. Anybody ever been in a helicopter before? Okay, well, you're going to experience the helicopter right here. So let me tell you a story about two customers who did this and the journey they went on. We're going to talk about what the decision criteria was and what the decision process was. And the most important decision that will ever be made about solar is finances. It's a great green thing to do. It makes a lot of sense for the environment. Business owners make decisions based on the finances. So let's talk a little bit about their journey. We talked to the business owner, and we asked them straight out, imagine if you didn't have solar on your roof, what would you be paying in utility costs over the next 25 years? So we ran a business model, and as you can tell, it's pretty significant, about $2 million. So let's take your big idea and install solar on a rooftop, and then run the financials, and then figure out what that would be in terms of income and reduce energy expenses. So if you just basically take the chart and flip it on its head, you'll notice that going solar is going to significantly and permanently change the whole finances of the organization, both for taxes as well as revenue generation. So let's get to the numbers. Let's do some details with the numbers. This particular customer saved, had a $2.3 million surplus in cash. The return was a double-digit return of 19%. Can someone tell me where they can get a 19% return guaranteed based on sunlight for 25 years? Because if you can, I want to talk to you. Anybody in the finance business? I'd love to talk to you about it. If they didn't go solar, it would have cost them about $2 million. Now, if you had a choice, if I gave you $2 million, would you take it? Yeah. Yes. If I gave you $2 million, would you take it? Great. If I had to pay $2 million, I wouldn't be very happy about it. But I'd be glad to take your $2 million. Okay. Everybody do me a favor. You have a smartphone. Everybody have a phone? Please take out your phone. And I will take out my phone. This is a cell phone. Okay? Now, I was thinking about asking what you use the phone for, and I think I figured out what the first one was. But what do you typically use your phone for? The first thing you do when you get your phone, what do you use your phone for?
Check the message.
Check messages. Okay, so text messaging would be one. What's another way of using your phone?
Calling someone.
So you make phone calls. Okay, so you have text messages and phone calls. That's good. Somebody uses the phone to call. What about email? We're always on the run, okay? Anybody here on Facebook, posting pictures of social media? Anybody have Instagram? So you use it for taking pictures. Some of you may use it for Snapchat. Some of you use it for LinkedIn. Okay, so using it for taking pictures. I like to watch videos. I'm a big video buff, so I like to watch movies on my phone. And the one thing I like to do also is I like to watch my weight. So I have a health app on my phone as well. So when you think about it, 50 years ago, this phone did one thing. It made a phone call. So what is a phone? It's a tool. It's a tool to solve many, many problems. Okay? Messages, texting, email, video, pictures. Let's take a look at what solar does. Solar is also a tool to solve many problems. The very first problem it solves is revenue generation. It could also help you permanently and significantly reduce costs. It also help you with managing your taxes by using federal and state tax incentives for your solar install. It'll also promote sustainability to your competitors, to your family, your friends, your vendors, and letting the entire universe know that you're doing something great for the environment. And then finally, it's used as a marketing tool. Now, I always get stopped here and people ask me, well, how do you use solar as a marketing tool? Well, think about it. If you're in the manufacturing business, or if you're in the steel business, or you're in the textile business, or if you're in the big box industry, what are you really doing to promote that you're a green organization? Well, you may not be doing much of anything, but what will solar do? Well, solar can help you rebrand your organization by letting everyone know in the universe, whether through social media or paid advertising, that you're actually doing something to help reduce costs, increase revenue, and do something great for the environment. Now, I'm sure Julian's done a great job of telling you how much sunlight hits the planet on a regular basis, but the fact that I have and the story I use, and I'm sticking to it, is every hour of sunlight that hits the planet is enough energy to meet the entire world's demand for energy for an entire year, which is pretty significant. So when you take a look at sunlight, we want to look at it from a perspective of a business. So a business owner would ask me, that's great, Anthony, I think solar's a great idea, but do we really get enough sunlight? So why don't we take a look and see how much sunlight we really do get? In the Southwest, we get about 5 3/4 hours of sunlight. Doesn't sound like a lot, but it really is. Now, when we're talking sunlight, we're talking direct sunlight. So when I speak to the business owner, or when you are sitting with the business owner and telling them about your big idea, you're telling them that you're getting 5 3/4 hours of sunlight. In the Northeast, it's a little less. In the Northwest, it's a little less. It's about 3 hours. Not as much. A lot of rain in Seattle. A lot of rain in Washington. In the Northeast, we get about 4 hours, maybe 4.5. Now, let's put this in perspective. Who can tell me the #1 country on the planet that promotes solar the best, that has the most solar installed on the planet? Germany. Now, can you tell me how much sunlight Germany, without looking at the screen? If Germany can install solar and only get 2.5 hours of sunlight, why are you, Mr. Businessman, Mr. Customer, Mr. Owner, why aren't you installing solar, getting about 4 hours of sunlight, plus it's being heavily subsidized? So there's really no reason not to go. So your big idea went from an idea to an actual plan, and it's really starting to make sense. So this big idea is starting to get much bigger. So whether you go to work for a big box organization, or whether you go work for a motorsports company in NASCAR, or whether you're working for a college or a university, your big idea is applicable across the organization, across many, many different aspects of business, whether you're a commercial customer or you're an industrial customer. The other question the owner is going to ask you as you're telling him about all the details of your big idea to go solar, he's going to say, well, how do I make money? How do I make money going solar? Well, without getting in too much detail, and to keep your attention, because I know I may see some glazed eyes here, is that the utility has programs that will help subsidize this installation of solar. There are rebates that are available, especially in New York State. There are other renewable energy credits that are offered throughout different states. And these incentives could be anywhere between the tens and hundreds of thousands. And I've seen systems, I've seen programs that they generate millions of dollars in incentives. So incentives are available. The other thing that I would say to the business owner, and that you would say to the business owner with your big idea, is that how do you cover the cost of the investment? Well, it really depends. So you want to sit there and explain to them there are different ways of financing it. You can do it with a zero out-of-pocket option, or if you have a significant tax liability, then you can use different financing structures. So as you're getting into the details of your idea about increasing revenue, decreasing cost, and telling them how to finance it, again, your big idea starts to take a life of its own. And there are also significant tax incentives that are available from the state and from the federal government. So all in all, when you take a look at how the system is paid for, you always want to ask yourself a question, but let the business owner ask you a question. That's a great idea, but what's it going to cost me to not go solar? An aging roof that's doing nothing but aging and deteriorating in sunlight. So if you've learned anything in the past few minutes of my lecture, hopefully I've been able to teach you a little bit about taking your big idea and really presenting your idea as you go into the workplace. And if you remember two things, remember these two things are really important. There are two types of businesses. There are businesses that are forward-thinking. There are businesses that are focused on revenue generation and looking for new vehicles to increase revenue and decrease cost. There are companies that want to promote sustainability, and they do it with the installation of solar. And then there's everybody else. Which company do you want to work for? I want to go back to my big idea. You have that big idea in your head, I know, I see it in your face. I don't want you to ever think for 1 minute that you can't take that big idea to that business owner, to that manager, to that owner. Because when you take a big idea to them and you explain it to them the way we went through this explanation in the past few minutes, they're going to understand, and you are adding value to their organization. And you'll be rewarded for it by getting a big salary. I'd like to end my presentation with a quote. And if you've seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street, anybody seen the movie The Wolf of Wall Street? It's a pretty good movie, okay? So I have paraphrased Jordan Belford's quote, and I've cleaned it up a little bit. And the only thing that's standing between you and your goal to go solar is the story you keep telling yourself as to why you can't achieve it. Again, Jordan Belford's was a little different. So, any questions? Yes.
Have you guys ever thought about with the rent aspect of solar, like you don't really own the land that the panels are on, so are there any solar companies that want to become the utilities? I understand like Solar City, they want to be America's next utility, you know what I'm saying? But they're still also caught in this cycle where they're kind of, how should I say, they're under this structure where they're leasing out other people's roofs and they don't really own the land that their panels are on. So what are some strategies? I don't know if you guys thought about it, like, I don't know, going to Detroit, you know, the land's cheap out there, or anywhere in Michigan, basically. I don't think there's a lot of sun out there compared to, you know, the Southwest, but what are some forward-thinking strategies that there's so many solar companies right now, and I feel like there's a lot of like, we got to get these owners to agree, whereas why don't the companies themselves become the owners of the land, so then they put the panels on there, and that's a revenue stream for the company itself and not for the business owner. I think what you're, and I think I understand your question. There's a couple components there. Yeah. So let me back up and see if I can answer all of them in a sequence. Sure. So Solar City is a company that it's a large publicly traded company, and their business model is based on tax equity. So, and they've used, again, as I said before, solar as a tool
to solve a problem. So Solar City is probably using solar as a tool to solve a tax management issue where they want to be able to leverage tax incentives to make money. And the way they do it is they own the system and they install the system on a customer's rooftop, and they take all the tax incentives and they share a piece of the savings with the customer. That's one aspect. According to that chart that we showed before, there's plenty of sunlight across the U.S. Solar is a financial discussion, and what happens is that solar is really based on the available incentives that are existing today. I know I kind of said that wrong, but incentives that are available. So if I'm in Michigan, and if I know that my cost of power is X, and I know if I run the numbers, my rate of return is going to be okay, I may not want to go solar because it's not heavily subsidized by the incentives. So, and your third question, I believe, is why aren't I guess business owners owning the land or owning the buildings? Solar installers are really in the business of making money on installations and financing. And business owners are in the business of solving those problems, which is increasing revenue, decreasing costs, taxes, and marketing. So business owners that own their property are probably going to buy the solar system to get the full benefit. Organizations that own a bunch of land, nothing is stopping them from installing solar on their property. It's just, again, it becomes a matter of finances. So the forward-thinking, I think the forward-thinking approach there would be that find an area that in the country that has great solar incentives, and then implement that in that part of the country. And as you can tell, New York is pretty high up on the list. We're rated number 5. I think we're rated number 2 behind California. New York, New Jersey, Long Island, Massachusetts, California is number 1. So there are markets that are doing very well. But you have to go back to why these companies and why business owners go solar. And again, companies do it for tax equity and revenue, and business owners do it for those 4 problems. Did that answer your question?
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Questions? Anybody else? Was this helpful? Yes.
Do you guys provide like storage capability solutions, or do you just sell it back to the grid?
That's a great question.
Are huge, so you have,
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that. The trend nowadays is going to be solar PV plus storage, because storage technology has come such a long way, and because the technology has increased, and with the they say you don't make life-changing decisions until something life-changing happens to you. And life change for New York was Hurricane Sandy. And as a result of Hurricane Sandy, a lot of these technology companies were given a boatload of money to go invest in backup technology and battery technology. So battery storage along with solar PV is working very well. I think the battery companies still have a way to go. But most systems today are grid tied, and the excess power is sold back into the grid. If system goes down, the system is probably going to shut down. But there are technologies available with storage and other backup medium that will address battery storage. Okay, yes.
Sorry, last.
No, please do.
Do you guys, for the solar industry, like, are there people in Washington, D.C. who are like lobbying for your guys' interest? Because it seems like there's been pushback from utilities, right, to buy back the power.
I'm gonna need water to answer this one.
So it's like I don't know how you guys are organizing it within the industry to like, all right, we need people, whispering in the legislature's ears and stuff like that. I mean, this might be outside of your scope.
No, I think it's a fantastic question. So let me give you some statistics, okay? There are 140,000 employees in solar. Solar grows on a compound annual basis of about 30%. Solar is the fastest growing industry literally on the planet, when you put it in perspective. Do we as an industry have lobbyists in DC? Absolutely we do. Solar sometimes it becomes a geopolitical discussion, and I'll kind of push that to the side. But factually speaking, solar is an inevitability as I look at it. One thing I would say to you, and one thing I want you to walk away with as well, is that solar is a very viable, growing, prosperous industry. And I'm all confident that you will find a very prosperous career in that industry. There's something called the Solar Engineering Institute of America. It's called SEIA. So if you guys want to write it down, Solar Engineering Institute of America, you can look it up online. And they will share with you all the statistics you ever wanted to know about solar by state, incentives that are available, which state's leading. They'll talk about tax credits and incentives, and it's an abundance of information. I mean, the Department of Energy website is really helpful. It's a little much to navigate through, but if you want to have something that's more of a Google-ish type of, I call it Google-ish. Is that a good word, David? Google-ish? it's a Google-ish type of site, so you can search really anything. And having to do with the solar industry. And I will give Julian my contact information, so if you have questions, I'll be more than happy to answer any of your questions. Is anybody here actively pursuing a position in the solar industry that really, like, once they finish their undergrad, their graduate work? Okay, I'm sorry, graduate work, sorry. Okay, what type of position are you looking for? What? What do you like to do? What do you like to do? Having to do with solar, what do you like to do? Do you like to talk about the technology? Do you like to be an advocate or an enthusiast? Do you want to be a designer, an engineer, or a project manager? What part of solar do you? Project manager. So you like managing installations and managing the process. That's good. There are plenty of positions out there today. Plenty of positions. Okay. Anybody else having aspirations to be in solar?
Right now I'm still finishing up my PhD, but...
Congratulations. Good luck to you.
Large-scale solar energy storage.
Great. And what have you found any particular company or vertical that is in storage that you like, or you found that is interesting?
There's not many. I mean, there's just like some battery implementations in California, but right now I'm researching solar water stability. So
Okay.
hydrogen storage, because it's large, it's easily scalable.
Right. That's a great word you used. One thing you have to remember too is solar is something that has to be scalable. So let's put this back into the big idea. So if I'm coming out of my graduate program and I'm a PhD looking into how to scale solar storage, what am I going to look for? Well, I'm going to look for ways, how do you scale that with solar? Because storage could be independent of solar, or it could be joined with solar. So scalability is important. And when you look at the finances, you go back to the finances, you'll see that you get economies of scale when you put them together. Because what's the cost? What's the cost of not having a backup system to a cold storage company? Pretty significant. If you kept ice cream in a cold storage building and your power went out, you'd probably lose most of your product. Okay? If you are in a ingredients or spice company that makes spices or flavoring for Walmart across the US, and you have to keep these buildings at a certain temperature and your power went out, what would that cost you? An awful amount of money. And it might cost you your job. I am so grateful to have the opportunity to speak to you. I wish all of you the absolute best. And remember, going back to the big idea, don't make the mistake that I made. Don't worry about what people say, think, or feel, because your idea is your own idea, and it will prosper. Thank you very much.